Victor Wembanyama is a 19-year-old Frenchman. He's 7'3", and he's about to shake up the NBA in a big way. He's said to be the NBA's best product ever. Just hold fire on that one. And by his third year in the league, he is tipped to take over as the game's best player. Today, he found out where he's going to be drafted to.
The number one pick in the 2023 NBA draft goes to the San Antonio Spurs.
The San Antonio Spurs walk away with the first overall pick in the 2023 draft. The right to draft a paradigm shifter, a generational talent in Victor Wembanyama. Their first number one pick since 1997 in Tim Duncan.
So there you have it, and clearly with what is going on with West Coast North and Hawthorn, it is a topical event for our game. So it was a major event on ESPN, as you just heard. They sent a reporter to France to cover the event, and the San Antonio Spurs won the first pick in the draft and the rights to Wemby. In doing so, Gerard, they added $750 million to the valuation of the team. $750 million, and they guaranteed that they will rebound strongly on the court next season. So with the talk set to heat up around tanking as we head into a game with Hawthorn and West Coast, two teams that have won a combined 2 wins and 16 losses this year, questions are rightly being asked as to whether or not these two teams are trying to win or lose and have the best shot at drafting the next Dustin Martin, Harley Reid. Reid was on afl.com.au talking about the hype surrounding his draft.
Doesn't really feel real. Like, when it happens, I'll probably feel more reality. Like, I look back a couple of years when you see all the hype about Dacos and that, but when you realise it's you, you just still don't really feel like it's you.
So how does it work? How does the lottery system in the NBA work? Well, the teams eligible to go into the draft lottery were the 14 teams that missed out on the NBA playoffs. The teams with the worst record had the best odds of getting the number one pick. So Detroit, for instance, they won 17, they lost 65. They had a 14% chance of getting the first pick in the draft. Houston was the same, and San Antonio 14% as well. So that would be our version of Hawthorn, West Coast and North. They got the worst record, so they got the best odds of winning the number one pick, but it's not guaranteed. Now, what they is also in this is the team with the worst record would not get a pick lower than pick 5. That's what happens in the NBA. So the lowest pick you can get if you got the worst record is pick 5, and then your odds, decrease as to how many games you won for the year, to the point where New Orleans, who are 42-40, had just a 0.5% chance of getting pick 1, and in the end, the Spurs got it. Now, if they brought this in, I reckon it would certainly deter teams from rebuilding as savagely as what Hawthorn have done this year. It would create another major television event for the league. And what it would also do is offer hope for 9 more teams and their fans that they had a small or large shot at getting the best prospect in the AFL draft. So what do you reckon? 1300 736 736. Jono, have you got a thought on it?
Oh, the lottery. It's been in my mind a little bit over the last few years, to be honest with you, more around some of the aspects of the way the season finishes off and the bottom teams just seeing out the year, and hopefully they land in the position they do to get the number one pick in the competition. So, Kane, from an AFL perspective then, would you do the bottom 6? Is that what we're sort of thinking of here? So if you did the bottom 6, and how many balls are in the Tats Lotto machine bubbling around, for example, right? So if we had 100 balls in the machine, I've got here that, and there's only rough numbers, and I'm trying to work it out in terms of how many balls each club should get out of the 100. So if you finish last, you might get 59 of them. 17th, you get 20. 16th, 15, 15th, 10, 14th, 5, and 13th, 1. One ball if you're the last in the lottery. So, but is 20 too much? Is 59 not enough for the last team? Like, where do we get to in terms of that? Is it go to percentages 80 and work
I think
your way down?
I think they'd work all that out. I mean, and you could get someone to ring up the NBA and find out how it works and how they've got to the point where they've fine-tuned it to the product that they've got now. Yep. All I know is that it adds another element to the game. Now, you may have a wild card where 10 teams qualify for the finals and the rest, the 8, go in the lottery. You could do that. So 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9, and the rest are in the lottery.
I'm a fan of the lottery just to get rid of all this discussion regarding tanking, but I'm also a fan of rewarding, and that's the wrong word, but it's probably appropriate, sides that have been out of finals for, say, 3 years. So there's an extra bonus that's built into the system. You know, if you haven't played finals for 3 years, you get an extra pick after round 1, for instance. And if there's 2 sides, depending on where you finish on the ladder, they get the second pick after round 1, because I think most supporters can cope with a year down the bottom. But when you get 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years where you haven't played finals footy, there's got to be a mechanism that allows you to graduate higher, because no player wants to go to a club that's on the bones of its backside and stay in that ordinary organisation. And if it is an ordinary organisation, at least if you give them extra picks, when they get their act together and they get themselves a decent off-field administration and decent coaching administration, he's already got enough talent so they can rebound much more quickly than, say, the Kangaroos about to.
Do you think we'll see more players potentially staying at the club that they're drafted to if this situation allows that rise to become a little bit quicker than what some have? So all of a sudden you might get 3 or 4, you might get 2 or 3 guys together over a 2-year period, for example, and all of a sudden that 2 years of those players together, then for another 2, and all, within 5 years you should have bounced if you're drafting really well.
It might take less than that.
You've
just got to, and once again, I'm closer to it, but Port Adelaide getting Rosie and Butters in the same draft, the impact that is having 4 seasons down the track now is massive. Sydney had 1 year where they were terrible, didn't they? 3 or 4 years ago. Then they bounced back straight away. That's the ideal model, and we do see that in the NBA. Golden State went right down for a year. They were hopeless, and then they bounced straight back up. That is a better system than having North Melbourne and West Coast, who are going to be there for at least another 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, quite clearly in basketball, one player is 20% of the on-field team. So it's a lot easier to bounce if you get your selections right. But, I mean, if you can get 2 or 3 in the right draft, as Geelong famously did all those years ago, and most other clubs have been able to do, it does, if you can do it, in 1 or 2 drafts collectively, it sets you up for a long period at the top.
Even Melbourne getting, I know Jackson's not there anymore, but what they've got for Jackson was significant, and Cozzy Pickett has a big impact. Jono, we've got your rolling All-Australian team coming up a little bit later on in the program, but a bit of a tease. You've got a question that you're pondering.
The big question for me, and I couldn't get an answer this afternoon when going through this, was who's had a better year so far, Callum Wilkie or Aliir? So that spot is up for grabs. Currently, it's Callum Wilkie. He's been in my side for the majority of the year, if not all the year. If I have a look back, Aliir has been in and out a little bit, but now consistently, I think Aliir is starting to get going again. And I look at both and I go, okay, who's had the better year between these two? I'm finding it hard to split them, so I need some assistance here, Kane, with yourself, Gerard, with the family, just to see if we can split these two by the time I read it out in about half an hour's time.
0433 98 11 16 is the September text. Who should get the nod in Jono's rolling All-Australian team, Wilkie or Aliir? What I will say is that either of those 2 players goes down, their team's prospects are shot. Wilkie goes down for Saints, shot. Aliir goes down for Port, they're done. We'll miss the finals, done. That's how important they are. So I'll just throw that one out there. Everyone's had their say on the snaps. Jono, you were one of the more skillful players to ever grace a football field, and you're an excellent skills coach. What is your advice to the players who are struggling with it?
Well, I did a little bit of a tiny deep dive into just the percentages to start with and go, okay, well, the reason I start to look at the snaps is when the Dogs played the Blues on the weekend, the Blues had 3 snaps that were ultimate disasters. They didn't score. So just got me thinking, okay, where's the snap at? And I know we talk about it a lot. Let's go to the traditional drop punt. But when you have a look at the actual stats on a set shot, the conversion's only 52%. And so therefore the deliberate snap's at 64%. So the deliberate snap is actually working in the game. It's just these disasters that are making us sort of, I suppose, get a little bit frustrated with where it's going. So But if I was a coach, I wouldn't have a problem with a deliberate snap, maybe outside the arc of about 45. If it was your natural side, if it was your natural snap foot to do it with, go to the boundaries. It's a different conversation altogether. But if you're on your opposite side, still on the 45, I'd be looking at a drop punt from that situation. That would be my sort of advice through this. It's just one thing that it captures our eyes and our imagination of where this is going, just because of these ultimate disasters. If you do a drop punt and you miss, at least you've still got that score on the board. Yeah, it's a miss. It's not out of bounds on the full from there, or it's not a complete miss. Ball's alive, opposition win it and run down the other end of the ground and score on you because you're not set up, because you just expect him to score. So it's just one of those things at the moment that I don't know. I just don't know where it sits still in my mind. But it's I'm probably leaning towards the snap's okay. But
I think most people are, as long as you know what you're doing. Like
Harry Mackay knows what he's doing.
That's right.
I don't know if he does. I don't know if he knows what kick he's going to kick from what portion of the goal. I've seen him have drop punts from where he snapped on the weekend, like 35 metres out, directly in front. So
but let's
he
just
needs
isolate,
a routine.
does he know how to snap? Yes, he knows how to snap.
No, he does.
He kicks magnificent snaps, but I think at the moment, as I said last night, the confidence level is down, and it's impacting on the way he executes.
But then that's the key, though. But it's the execution. I agree. I think he actually knows his routine, but it's the execution at times where your element of error is quite slim. So you come off that point of the ball and you're in the belly of the ball within millimetres, and it's either going out of bounds on the full, or it's skying, or it ends up floating. So that's the part there. Is this
But
execution
isn't the reason
part.
that they do it is because the sweet spot is larger on the snap?
Yeah, well,
Because you've got a bigger belly to hit.
But it comes down to the perfect hit, I think. I think you have to hit them relatively perfect every time.
Same with the drop punt.
Well, yeah, but it does, but it'll still score. If you don't hit the if you don't hit the snap near perfect, you don't know where it's going to go.
And I'm just not sure about Cripps on his left foot snapping. I mean, he's
I
an
don't know
ordinary
why
left
people
foot
don't
kick.
do bananas more. I mean, the banana to me, most people kick 1,000 balls for every one kick they do on their non-preferred, and yet we're going around the corner instead of doing boomerangs or bananas.
Or check sides.
Or the old check side.
Or as we like to call it.
Yes.
Gerard, Jono, there was Tim Taranto spoke today. You wanted to raise this, I think.
Well, it was just I had to listen to what Tim had to say, and I was just starting to think of you straight away, Kane, and where
What did he say, Jono?
Where this sits in your mind. So Tim was just talking about in response to Kane's assessment of him as a player and how his season is going, and in some ways he agreed, which I thought was
On his kicking.
was good. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good in terms of it. Yep, Kane's on the money here, but then there was aspects of you can set up the narrative the way that you want to set up the narrative around some conversations that I had. How do you sit with it, Kane? The fact that you put some players under the pump, and that's fine. You assess them the way that you see their game going at that particular point. But in terms of the players' response, are you thinking that everyone needs to respond to you now because of the criticism that's been put out there?
No, I guess I'm glad you raised it, because a lot of people have said, he continually talks about this. What I said about Tim Taranto, how this started, was a conversation with Kingy on a Friday morning around the trades, and as you guys well know, I think the trades are not going to work out favourably for Richmond. And then we got on to Taranto. I said what I said, and it was a brief grab. It was a 10-second grab. That is then shown to Damien Hardwick, who talks about it. That is then spoken about on 3OW. It's spoken about. That is then spoken about on Triple M. And so there's a narrative that I continually talk about this. I've said what I've said. Other people, including Hardwick, have amplified what I have said to the point where it feels like, Kane's banging on about Taranto. And then I feel like I've got to respond on Monday and say, well, hang on. This is the reason I said what I said, because this is what I'm seeing in his game. And if he doesn't fix it, he can't be considered to be an elite player. So that he can respond in any way that he likes. But I just got a bit frustrated with, it's the continual conversation around Tim Taranto. 90% of that hasn't come from me. It's been driven from people responding to me, which is where I was a bit frustrated last Monday. But I'll stand by the fact that he's an ineffective kick. The numbers will say that. It's a fact, and he cannot be an elite player until that is fixed. Not saying he's not an effective player.
I was
he can't
thinking
be
about
elite.
about this and effective kick and non-effective kick. When you're playing a chaos game like the Tigers are, maybe ineffective kicks are a bit more effective than we think because they are at least being won and they're at least gaining territory. And if it's on the deck, I mean, if you kick it straight down the throat of the opposition and goes over your head, that is clearly a totally ineffective kick. But we'll have to check with Healy about his definition.
There's Richmond. Remember, Richmond were horrible at clearances when they were winning. They didn't care about winning clearances because they knew it would be under pressure and they'd win it back.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what I see with Richmond. I know they were better on the weekend. A lot of them, they've improved their clearance game, but a lot of it is hack forward. Yep, tick. Taranto gets a clearance. There's another one, but the opposition win it and they're in a dangerous position to rebound. So there's clearances and then there is clearances. Is Fremantle's season well and truly alive?
Beware
Jono?
the Fremantle doctor. The sea breeze is rolling in, Gerard.
The wind is blowing from the
and
southeast.
it could pick up some speed
I agree with you.
over the coming months as well. Yeah, they've won their last two, and they've only been against Hawthorn and the Sydney Swans, who are struggling at the moment. But the points for 117 and 103. Now, with the Fremantle Dockers, they've only lost the inside 50 count twice this year. So when you look across that, they're two losses. Well, they lost to the Adelaide Crows, but they were even in inside 50, so they had equal opportunity to hit the scoreboard. They got smashed by the Western Bulldogs -15 and smashed by the Lions -20 and 6 and 7. They're their worst two performances for the year. Other than that, they've certainly been in and around the contest. Now, we know what they need to improve on, and what they've done the last couple of weeks is they've kicked the ball more than handball. So the kick-to-handball ratio has gone through the roof. So they've made that adjustment in their game. They're winning stoppages the last couple of weeks, but more importantly, scoring off those stoppages, starting to get it better around the ball. We spoke about Brayshaw and Sarong and these guys. Sarong's been pretty good, but the collective haven't been working. All of a sudden, it's starting to work. Yes, against lower base teams, but now we wait to see whether they can do that against some teams that are, who they've got over the coming weeks.
Good 3 weeks.
Great test for them coming up on against the Cats. I just see them going forward more, Jono, and going forward more quickly.
Well, they are, and you look at their efficiency. Then is picked up inside 50. Their time in forward half because of their defensive pressure has gone through the roof. They're plus 13 minutes in time in forward half, which is a massive number. Sits 2 in the AFL over the last couple of weeks. So they've started to get all their elements right within their game. They're hitting the scoreboard, getting over 100 points the last 2 weeks has been impressive. But you're right about the next period of time. They play the Cats at home, and then they play the D's at the G. Now, we all know what happened last year in round 11 when Melbourne were on fire, hadn't lost a game, and they met Freo at the MCG. And the Dockers were down by 4 goals at halftime, and then were able to turn the tables to win quite comfortably by 38 points. So I think they'll turn up to that game these next 2 weeks, the Dockers really testing themselves, and they'll be a threat to the sides that they play before the bye, then Richmond at home.
As we move on to your talking points, up next, you wanted to have you say about the red hot Ds.
Yeah, they are. And how do we get the Ds to 17 wins, Gerard? Because I think that's
why is that so important?
Well, that's the top. That's the top 4. The 17 wins, 16, 17 wins. I think is going to get you into the top 4. And I've kind of been a little bit conservative with how I've sort of approached this from a Melbourne perspective. So at the moment, they sit 7-2. And they've got a strong percentage of 143.6. Great start to the year. But they've had, I suppose, a softer draw in terms of the first part of the season, and it's allowed them to actually get a jump on the competition. Now it's how they actually get themselves another 10 wins over the remaining part of the season. So the next 6 weeks, they play Port Adelaide away, Freo at home, Carlton at home, Collingwood at home, the bye, then the Cats at GMHBA Stadium.
Which of those games will they not start favourite in?
Well, probably depends on what the other teams are doing. Probably two of them potentially.
Geelong and Collingwood.
And I give them 3 and 3 in that period. So takes them.
You're talking about the injured Geelong or the fully fit Geelong?
No, I'm talking about Melbourne.
But
Geelong's not till round 15,
no,
so they
it's
should
not.
Get some back.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give them 3 and 3 in that next period, Melbourne, of the draw. So all of a sudden they go to 10 wins. And then you go to the next block, which is GWS, St Kilda, Lions, Crows, and Richmond. 5 games there. I'd give them 3 and 2. So all of a sudden they're on 13 wins with 4 games to go. They win their last 4 games of the year, Melbourne, and they go into the finals absolutely red hot and cherry ripe, and they'll be able to rest a couple of players in the lead up to the final series against a couple of these teams, North Melbourne, Carlton, Hawthorn, and Sydney. So there's their 4. So that gives them 17. So it's not unrealistic over the next period of the draw, the 11 games, that they can get themselves to, in a position to really finish strong and get their 17 wins for the season. I don't think that's unachievable at all.
No, I wouldn't have thought there was a question mark on whether Melbourne are going to finish in the top 4.
We need to see if Brisbane are going to get in the top 2 as well, John.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one for next week.
Absolutely.
If Brisbane get top 2, not top 4, then look out with where they will be, because they'll be playing
Red hot.
on the last Saturday in September if they finish
Only
top
says
2.
they're the form side of the competition right
The Brisbane
now.
Lions.
Number 1.
They're very good. Well, I think Gather Round turned their momentum a little bit. And yeah, they played North Melbourne and smashed them,
Yeah.
but it was the way they went about it that day, which was really impressive. Watching them live,
Jack Payne has turned their whole season around.
he has been
And Joe
phenomenal,
Danaher. I
hasn't
think
he?
Joe Danaher as well.
I think everyone underestimated the closing speed and the endurance of a Jack
Jack.
Payne. Yeah, he's been excellent. He's always in the contest, always closing up the contest, and it's allowed Harris Andrews to do what he does best.
So, John, who have you got as your top 2 teams at the present time? If you've got Melbourne finishing essentially in
The
4th
top
with
4,
17.
Yeah, it's probably Collingwood and Brisbane.
Yeah.
And then it comes down to the percentage, I think, for Melbourne, and whether they can reach a top 2 spot or whether they just sit 3rd and 4th and potentially have to play a Collingwood or a Brisbane Lions away in the first week of the finals. It's intriguing, but they've got to get themselves at least to this point here, and they've got to get themselves there with a healthy percentage at the end.
Will it be 13 with the extra round that gets you into the top 8, John?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we'll be
percentage?
around that. I think we'll be around that. Maybe 12 and a really strong percentage, because I think towards the back end of the year, and we'll have a look at the draw as the year goes along, but there'll be some sides battling each other for that spot in the 8, 7 and 8, and it'll come down to those percentages and luck of the draw on who you're playing in that particular part of the round. The last 4 weeks, if you're playing North Melbourne, Hawthorn, not so much Hawthorn, they're competitive, maybe West Coast, then you could get yourself a bit of a percentage boost.
And if you're Essendon and you play them twice, you're in for a good percentage boost. All right, Jono, over to you.
All right, here we go.
The most talked about team in the league is up now. What do you got for us?
All right,
Start with your axings.
I start in the back. Well, you want me to start in the back pocket or start in the
Axings.
because I had the Wilkie Alir conversation going in my own mind. No one else's, just my own. But my axings are then Ed Richards, Sard, and Parrish.
Jeez, Ed Richards has got...
Ed
Yes,
Richards
he
got
went-
coaches' votes, didn't
He went from sub to out. Unfortunately, it's getting tight, Kane. It's getting
But
tight.
he's got coaches' votes and you've
Well, he
sacked him.
did, but the guys that were in,
And he plays for the
no,
Dogs.
Wow.
No, I know it's a tough call, and Ed will respond. Trust me.
What? Respond what? Get more coaches'
Well,
votes?
Oh, we wonder if he'll respond and give me some feedback that I'll have to then
Gee whiz.
respond to. But anyway, let's start in the back line. Wilkie survives over
Good call.
Alir.
Happy with that.
Andrews at full back. Tom Stewart in the back pocket. He comes into the side. Nick Dacos, Darcy Moore, and Jack Sinclair as the half-back
Strong
line.
back line,
Very strong.
Jono.
Been like that all year. Very strong. Dacos of the Josh variety, Bont and Mason Wood. That's the centre line. DeGoey is half
You're
forward.
sure Steele side bottom shouldn't be on a wing?
Yeah, Mason Wood, 18 kick 2.
Yeah.
He's doing enough. He's doing
you're
enough to
keeping him out?
survive. Yes, to survive there and it's tough. Still side bottoms. Probably had a couple of quiet ones along the way. That's
Okay.
Mason Wood's just edged him on. So DeGoey, Jeremy Cameron, and Toby Green. Now Toby Green survives. If Toby Green doesn't come back this week, unfortunately he'll be gone. But I think he'll come back and have a immediate impact. And
Does he
stay
have
in
to
the
have a
team.
strong game
He
to
has to have a
survive?
strong game. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Charlie Cameron is the best small forward in the game. Charlie Curnow at full forward, and Joe Danaher comes into the side in the forward pocket.
So you said Joe Danaher is not the best forward running around at the moment?
No, Jeremy Cameron still is in my
Still
mind.
Jeremy Cameron,
Yes.
yep.
Joe Danaher comes in, Gerard, because I've been thinking about your second ruck option
Oh, okay.
over the last
yes.
week.
Nice.
So Joe Danaher is on fire. His
yeah,
last
good.
5 weeks have been
Great
huge.
selection, Jono.
And he comes in and can play the second ruck role. English
That's
is
more
the
balanced.
ruck. Thank you.
Yeah.
English is the ruckman.
Is Darcy pushing hard? The Sean variety from Fremantle?
Darcy and the Big O. The Big O from Brisbane, I think, just behind Darcy at the moment. So Tim English starts to battle, then there could be a change with one of those two if they continue on with form. Petrarca and Oliver, the two mids, the two Melbourne guns, which pushed out Dawson to the bench. Pendle stays on the bench. Neil is on the bench. Butters comes in on the bench and pushes his
Yes.
teammate Rosie to the sub.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's why Ed Richards unfortunately got squeezed, because Rosie's probably been a little bit stronger and just stays in the side as the sub.
So who's in the to be selected from, or in the squad, as we would like to
Well,
call
the three
them?
outs are still
35 seconds.
the three outs are still in the squad. Richard Sard and Parrish, Rowell and Anderson. I think especially Anderson from the Gold Coast Suns. Alir, Sarong, Danger, Taylor Walker, Errol Goulden, the Big O and Darcy, the two ruckmen I'm looking
Great
at.
stuff, John.